Poor cleaner gets kicked in the stomach at millionaire's wedding for the amusement of the rich. But the bride takes drastic action, and moments later, the worst happens. Comment and rate my story from 0 to 10. Your opinion is very important, and subscribe to my channel to support my work. I'm counting on your help. The sun hadn't yet risen when the humble cleaner awoke in the cramped room she shared with her 4-year-old daughter. Her calloused hands trembled slightly as she prepared the weak coffee that would be their only sustenance until the end of the day. The girl, looking frail for a child of just 2 due to constant malnutrition, slept curled up on a thin mattress on the floor. At 30, the cleaner carried on her face the deep marks of 15 years of hard work, cleaning the mansions of the elite in the sprawling metropolis. Her eyes, however, still held a spark of hope that not even extreme poverty had managed to extinguish completely. Each day represented a silent battle for survival, a struggle that had begun when she was just a 15-year-old teenager and had to drop out of school to work. That specific morning, a different opportunity awaited her. She had been hired to work at the most grandiose event of the year for the local high society, the lavish wedding of a 30-year-old heir to a business tycoon and a dazzling socialite. The payment would be 3 times higher than normal, enough money to buy medicine for her daughter and maybe even protein-rich food for the first time in months. The business tycoon's heir was known for his striking good looks, like a movie heartthrob who hypnotized women wherever he went. His fortune, accumulated through investments in Wall Street stocks and holdings in various hedge funds, seemed limitless. Even part of his wealth was held in Bitcoin, a demonstration of how his capital extended beyond traditional assets. The bride, a socialite with a stunning appearance, captivated everyone around her with her natural elegance and irresistible charm. She came from an old East Coast family, known for their wealth in gold and properties that had spanned decades. Together, they formed the golden couple that graced the society pages and aroused envy and admiration in equal measure. Upon arriving at the mansion where the ceremony would be held, the cleaner was struck by the exuberant luxury she had never witnessed. Priceless chandeliers hung from the ceiling, imported flowers decorated every corner, and French champagne flowed freely among the 300 millionaire guests. Every detail cost more than she earned in an entire year of work. Dressed in the simple uniform she had washed the night before, she blended in among the other temporary staff, all equally invisible to the eyes of the elite present. Her job was to serve drinks and appetizers to the guests, remaining discreet and efficient. The difference between her world and that one was so glaring that it was suffocating. During the ceremony, while circulating among the guests with a tray of crystal glasses filled with golden champagne, her eyes couldn't help but observe the brutal contrast. There was enough concentrated wealth to solve the problems of thousands of families like hers, but no one seemed aware of this reality. It was when she approached a group of arrogant bridesmaids, all dressed in fabrics that cost a fortune, that fate decided to intervene in a cruel way. One of the bridesmaids, a haughty woman flaunting priceless jewelry, gestured dramatically as she recounted an anecdote about her last vacation in exotic lands. The bridesmaid's abrupt movement caused the cleaner, trying to swerve, to trip over the expensive fabric of her dress. The tray flew from her hands as if in slow motion, and the champagne spilled onto the hand-embroidered fabric, creating a stain that seemed to spread like an open wound on the precious silk. The silence that followed was deafening. 300 pairs of eyes turned to the scene, and then the laughter began, first softly, then louder, until it turned into open guffaws. The guests seemed to have found the perfect entertainment for that afternoon, the public humiliation of a poor woman. The affected bridesmaid screamed about the value of the dress, demanding immediate reparation that she knew was impossible. Other guests approached, forming a circle around the cleaner like spectators of a spectacle. Cruel words rained down from all sides, each one sharper than the last. It was then that the drunk groomsman, a burly man known for his cruelty even when sober, decided to raise the level of humiliation. With a sadistic smile on his face, he pushed the cleaner with unnecessary force, causing her to fall to her knees on the cold marble floor. The physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation that burned in her chest like fire. The groomsman wasn't content with the fall. For the growing amusement of those present, he delivered a well-aimed kick to the defenseless woman's stomach. The applause that followed echoed through the mansion as if it were indeed a scheduled performance. The cleaner curled up on herself, embracing the physical pain, while tears of humiliation began to run down her face. The bride, who until then had observed the scene with an amused smile on her face, suddenly stopped laughing. Something changed in her expression when her eyes met the real despair plastered on the face of the fallen cleaner. For a moment that seemed eternal. The luxurious hall was silent, with only the echo of applause still resonating through the marble walls. Without warning, the dazzling socialite grabbed the groom's arm with surprising force, her fingers digging into the fine fabric of his tailored tuxedo. She whispered something in his ear that made the heir to the business tycoon turn pale instantly, as if the blood had been drained from his face in a matter of seconds. The man tried to break free, but she maintained her firm grip, her low words carrying a weight that only he could understand. The guests began to murmur among themselves, realizing that something unexpected was happening. The tension in the air was palpable, as if an invisible storm was forming in the middle of the most anticipated celebration of the year. The business tycoon's heir looked around, noticing for the first time the expectant faces of the 300 millionaires who had invested time and money to celebrate their union. Then, in a gesture that shocked all those present, the bride slowly removed her diamond tiara, a unique piece valued at millions, a family heirloom representing generations of accumulated wealth. With deliberate movements, she threw the precious jewel at the feet of the still-fallen cleaner, the sound of metal hitting marble echoing like thunder in the absolute silence that took over the environment. "I will not marry someone who allows such cruelty," the socialite declared in a firm and clear voice, her words cutting through the air like a sharp blade. The wedding dress, which had cost a fortune and had been designed specifically for that day, seemed too heavy for her shoulders as she walked away from the makeshift altar. The wedding was abruptly cancelled, leaving 300 guests in a state of total shock. Some tried to intervene, others simply watched agape as the event of the year crumbled before their eyes. The business tycoon's heir remained paralyzed, his investments in hedge funds and his wealth in dollars seeming insignificant in the face of the public humiliation he had just suffered. The ex-bride approached the cleaner, still on the floor, extending her hand with unexpected gentleness. "Get up," she said in a soft voice, helping her to her feet as the guests watched the surreal scene. The diamond tiara remained on the floor, abandoned as a symbol of the rupture that had just occurred. While helping the cleaner to recover, the socialite whispered in her ear, "I grew up in a situation similar to yours before I became rich through my first marriage. I know exactly how you feel right now." The words carried a weight of lived experience that made the cleaner look at her with wide eyes of surprise. The days that followed were a whirlwind of unexpected consequences. The news of the cancelled wedding spread through the sprawling metropolis like wildfire, fueling gossip and speculation in all social circles. The cleaner returned to her simple life on the outskirts, trying to process the surreal events she had witnessed. It was then that the ex-bride appeared at her door, 3 days after the scandal. The elegant woman looked out of place in the poor neighborhood, her luxurious car contrasting violently with the simple houses and dirt streets. She wore expensive but discreet clothes, as if trying to blend in with an environment that clearly did not belong to her world. "I need to talk to you," said the socialite, entering the small room where the cleaner lived with her daughter. Her eyes scanned the modest environment, the peeling walls, the few and old furniture. The 4-year-old child hid behind her mother, intimidated by the presence of the elegant stranger who seemed to have stepped out of a fairy tale. The ex-bride made a proposal that left the cleaner speechless, a job as a housekeeper in her mansion, with a salary 3 times higher than anything she had ever earned, plus guaranteed housing for her and her daughter. The money would be enough to provide adequate medical care for the child and even quality education. "Why would you do this for me?" asked the cleaner, distrustful of the sudden generosity. She had learned over the years that offers that seemed too good to be true usually hid ulterior motives. The socialite smiled, but there was something in her eyes that did not inspire complete trust. "Let's just say I have my reasons," replied the ex-bride evasively. "The business tycoon's heir humiliated me in ways you can't even imagine during our relationship. Now it's time for him to pay for it. And you, inadvertently, gave me the perfect opportunity to make that happen." The cleaner felt a chill run down her spine. She was beginning to understand that she had become a pawn in a game far more complex and dangerous than she had initially imagined. The ex-bride was not simply a generous woman driven by compassion. She was someone seeking revenge, and she needed an ally to execute her plans. Even so, necessity spoke louder than prudence. Her daughter needed urgent medical care, and the opportunity to escape extreme poverty was too tempting to be refused. She accepted the proposal, without imagining that she was sealing her fate in a way that would change her life forever, bringing consequences that she could never have foreseen. Moving to the ex-bride's mansion brought a temporary relief that the cleaner hadn't felt in years. The room intended for her and her daughter was larger than the entire house where they lived before, with a comfortable bed, private bathroom, and even a small refrigerator. For the first time in a long time, her daughter was able to eat nutritious meals regularly, and the difference in her appearance began to show in a matter of weeks. The ex-bride, who insisted on being called only Madam, proved to be a demanding but fair boss. Her instructions were precise, and she expected them to be followed to the letter. But the payment arrived punctually, and the benefits were real. The cleaner began to believe that perhaps her luck had finally changed. However, as the days passed, disturbing details began to emerge. The mansion received strange visits during the early hours of the morning. Men in suits who arrived in cars with tinted windows and left before dawn. The ex-bride locked herself in her office during these meetings, and the sound of tense conversations occasionally leaked through the thick wooden doors. One night, while cleaning the hallway near the office, the cleaner overheard fragments of a conversation that made her freeze. The ex-bride spoke about completely destroying the business tycoon's heir, mentioning evidence that would ruin him forever and the need for a reliable witness who could confirm the details. It was then that she realized that her new job was not the result of kindness. It was part of an elaborate revenge plan. The ex-bride needed someone who had worked in the business tycoon's heir's house, someone who might have overheard compromising conversations during years of invisible work in the mansions of the elite. At the same time, the business tycoon's heir's situation began to deteriorate rapidly. The public cancellation of the wedding had shaken his reputation, and he could not accept the humiliation he had suffered. His investments in stocks began to show losses, and his partners questioned his emotional stability. Anger consumed his thoughts, focusing on the 2 women he considered responsible for his downfall. Using his vast network of influence and his financial resources, the business tycoon's heir launched a silent campaign of sabotage. First, he ensured that the cleaner was fired from all the other jobs she occasionally got in the houses of the elite. His connections in the business world were deep, and his word was enough to close doors permanently. Then he turned his attention to the ex-bride. He pressured suppliers who supplied her mansion, from food to cleaning products, threatening to cut off lucrative deals if they continued to sell to her. Gradually, the socialite's life began to become complicated in small but constant ways. During 3 months of increasing pressure, the tension in the mansion became palpable. The ex-bride became increasingly nervous. Her nightly meetings became more frequent and intense. She began to ask the cleaner specific questions about conversations she might have overheard in the business tycoon's heir's house, especially related to questionable business. "Do you remember hearing him talking about bank transfers to accounts abroad?" asked the ex-bride during dinner, trying to appear casual. "Or maybe about documents that needed to be kept secret." The cleaner realized that each question was carefully calculated, part of a larger puzzle that she still couldn't completely see. The pressure increased when the ex-bride partially revealed her plans. She possessed evidence of tax fraud involving the business tycoon's heir, documents proving suspicious money transfers, false statements about his assets, and holdings in hedge funds used to launder dirty money. But she needed a witness who could confirm specific conversations to make the evidence irrefutable. "During all those years cleaning his house, you must have heard important things," the ex-bride insisted, her eyes gleaming with a disturbing intensity. "Conversations about undeclared profits, about hiding assets from the authorities. I need you to confirm that information when the time comes." The cleaner began to understand that she had become a prisoner of war between two powerful worlds. On one side, the business tycoon's heir was using his influence to make their lives impossible, cutting off sources of income and creating constant obstacles. On the other, the ex-bride was pressuring her to become a key player in a revenge scheme that could have serious legal consequences. The situation became even more complicated when strangers began appearing in the neighborhood where the cleaner used to live, asking questions about her to the neighbors. Men in expensive cars who clearly did not belong there, asking about her schedule, her habits, where she currently worked. One afternoon, while taking her daughter to a doctor's appointment, a luxury only possible thanks to her new job, the cleaner noticed that she was being followed. The same black car had appeared in 3 different places along the way, always keeping its distance but never losing sight of her. That night, as she watched her daughter sleep in the comfortable room of the mansion, the cleaner realized that she had exchanged a small prison for a larger and more dangerous one. Extreme poverty had been replaced by material comfort, but her freedom was being slowly eroded by forces she could barely understand. The ex-bride knocked on the bedroom door, bringing papers in an elegant folder. "Tomorrow, we need to talk about some important details," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "About things you heard, places you've been, people you've seen. It's time to start preparing our final strategy." The shocking revelation came unexpectedly when the cleaner, looking for cleaning supplies in the ex-bride's office, found a drawer slightly ajar. Inside, scattered documents told a story that changed everything she thought she knew. Signed contracts, bank transfers, and correspondence revealed the devastating truth. The ex-bride and the business tycoon's heir were secret partners in elaborate money laundering schemes. The wedding that had been publicly cancelled was nothing more than a carefully orchestrated charade to consolidate illicit business dealings. The 2 criminals had used the ceremony as a way to officially merge their assets and facilitate the transfer of dirty money between their companies. The humiliation at the wedding, which she believed she had inadvertently caused, had been planned from the beginning as a way to divert attention from the authorities. The cleaner's hands trembled as she flipped through the papers detailing years of criminal activity. Bank accounts in tax havens, shell corporations created to hide profits, bribes paid to public officials. Everything was documented with frightening precision. She realized that she had been manipulated from the first moment, used as a disposable piece in a much larger and more dangerous game. The sound of footsteps in the hallway made her quickly hide the documents and pretend she was cleaning. The ex-bride appeared in the doorway with a different expression on her face, no longer the mask of kindness she used to wear, but something cold and calculating that made the cleaner feel a chill run down her spine. "Did you find anything interesting?" the socialite asked, carefully observing every move the cleaner made. The casual question carried an implicit threat that could not be ignored. It was obvious that the ex-bride knew exactly what was kept in that drawer and had deliberately left it accessible as a test. At that moment, the cleaner understood that both criminals knew she had discovered the truth. The business tycoon's heir and the ex-bride had been coordinating their actions from the beginning, creating an elaborate charade to involve her in their schemes. She wasn't a valuable witness. She was a potential threat that needed to be controlled or eliminated. In desperation, she tried to flee the city with her daughter that same night. She packed her few clothes and took the little money she had managed to save during her months working at the mansion. But upon arriving at the Greyhound bus station, they were intercepted by men who clearly worked for the business tycoon's heir. They didn't need to use violence. The threats were enough. "If you tell anything to the authorities," one of the henchmen said in a calm but threatening voice, "your daughter will suffer consequences you can't imagine. Go home and behave as if nothing had happened." The child cried, frightened by the tension in the air, as they were escorted back to the mansion. The psychological pressure of the following days was devastating. The cleaner's daughter began to get sick, developing symptoms of stress that manifested in digestive problems and constant nightmares. Without her own money or independent health insurance, the cleaner depended completely on the ex-bride for the child's medical care. It was then that the socialite revealed her final plan with refined cruelty. She offered to pay for specialized medical treatment for the cleaner's daughter at a renowned private clinic, but on one condition. She had to sign documents taking responsibility for information that would be used against the business tycoon's heir, officially becoming an informant. "You will be our key witness," the ex-bride explained with a cold smile. "You will tell the authorities exactly what I instruct you to say. In exchange, your daughter will receive the best possible treatment, and you too will have guaranteed protection." It was an offer that seemed generous on the surface, but the cleaner realized that she would become a permanent puppet. At the most desperate moment, when she was about to accept the dirty money to save her daughter, the cleaner remembered the words of her late mother. "Daughter, dignity is the only thing the rich cannot take from us, but that we can surrender voluntarily. Never do that." The words echoed in her mind like a distant echo of simpler times. Making a courageous decision that would change everything, she managed to secretly record a full confession about everything she had discovered. Using an old phone she found forgotten in the mansion, she recorded details about the documents she had seen, the conversations she had heard, and the true nature of the relationship between the two criminals. The recording was given to an investigative journalist at the small local television station, a man known for his integrity and who had been investigating irregularities involving businessmen in the region for months. He had been trying to gather evidence against the same criminal group, but always ran into the lack of witnesses willing to expose themselves. The public revelation caused a scandal that shook the entire sprawling metropolis. The investigation revealed a network of corruption involving dozens of business owners, politicians, and public officials. The wealth in dollars and the stock investments of both criminals were frozen, and their holdings in suspicious hedge funds became evidence against them. During the 6 turbulent months that followed, the cleaner and her daughter were forced to hide in a homeless shelter in the poorest part of the city. There, surrounded by other women in vulnerable situations, she volunteered in exchange for protection and housing. It was in this simple environment that she discovered talents she never knew she possessed: organizational skills, natural leadership, and an impressive ability to resolve conflicts. The final twist came when the journalist sought out the cleaner at the shelter with extraordinary news. The investigation had resulted in the arrest of the criminals and the recovery of millions in embezzled money. Part of that capital would be used to create an assistance fund for victims of labor exploitation, and she would be one of the main beneficiaries. The compensation received was enough to start a completely new life. But more important than the money was the real opportunity to rebuild her existence with dignity. She decided to move to a small, thriving community far from the sprawling metropolis, where she opened a small ethical cleaning business. Her company employed other women in vulnerable situations, offering fair working conditions, decent wages, and real benefits. Each employee received adequate training and support to develop their skills. The business grew rapidly, gaining a reputation for the quality of service and the respectful treatment given to both employees and clients. Her daughter, now healthy and well-fed, attended a quality school where she demonstrated exceptional intelligence and a thirst for learning. For the first time, both experienced what it meant to live with dignity and real hope for the future. The community welcomed them as family, and they discovered that true wealth was not in financial assets, but in genuine human connections and the possibility of helping others find their own paths to freedom. If you liked this video, please subscribe to my channel. I promise to bring you videos every day that will make your life happier. Comment on what you thought of my story, giving it a rating from 0 to 10, and thank you very much.